Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first of our summer evenings where we have a bit of a change from our Tuesday evening sermons, and we've got some input that's not necessarily related to our Sunday morning service. Tonight, we're welcoming Kate Irvine from Parenting for Faith, and this will be the first of two evenings that Kate is going to be with us over the summer, giving us some input and some ideas around parenting for faith and what they do and what they have to offer us. So, welcome to Kate. We also have a great team of folks from around the church who have agreed to be on this call and to be here to give some input to tonight, to ask questions of Kate, and also to maybe share their experience of where they've even maybe inadvertently seen the ideas that Kate is going to share impact either in their home life or in their ministry amongst us here at Brighton's Parish Church. So Kate, why don't you give us a little bit of background to yourself? Who are you? And tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, good evening, Brighton's Church from the sunny Cotswolds. I'm Kate Irvine, and I'm married to Andy, and I have three children. They are 19, 23, and 25, and I have lived in the Cotswolds for 10 years. Before that, I was brought up in Devon, and my husband's from Glasgow, so we lived just south of Glasgow for 15 years, and two of our children were born up there. Middle of the lockdown, I started with Parenting for Faith. Previous to this, I have been children's ministry leader at a local Baptist church for the last 7.5 years. So I have met all my team and colleagues by Zoom, which has been more than interesting, and I've been made very welcome. I've known about Parenting for Faith for about 4 years. I got dragged along to a retreat many moons ago, and haven't looked back since. I've used Parenting for Faith in my own family and also in my ministry with children. The rest of my time, work 3 days with Parenting for Faith. We have some businesses locally. We have 2 fudge shops and a sweetie shop, so we are the dentist's best friend.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kate. And wow, that's quite an introduction to your job, getting started in the middle of lockdown. So thank you for your time tonight and sharing with us. And hopefully we've got a good number of our church family joining us tonight, because tonight the aim is to equip as much of our church family as possible, give you a bit of a taster of the concepts, the reasons why Parenting for Faith really exists, and because it's not just Parenting for Faith that has the heart that it has. I think that part of the reason that we thought there'd be a real connection with Parenting for Faith is that we do feel that what they embody is there in the heart of us here at Brighton's Parish Church. And so it seemed a very natural opportunity to ask Kate to come and share some of their experience and resources and give us a bit of a taster. There's so much available through Parenting for Faith, and we'll talk a bit about that along the way and over the next session as well. And so we hope that tonight's session and the following one at the start of August will really help equip all of us as a church family. Whether you have children at home with you or not, this has relevance for us all. And so if that's the aim, let's talk a little bit about the why, because that's a really important question as well. Okay, so we're getting into the why question. Why are we got tonight? Why is this important? Why is it important that we try and equip the whole church? And I'd heard about Parenting for Faith from a number of different sources, people who had done their course, people who had read their books. My wife listens regularly to their podcast. And I think also for me, part of this had been, I've been stressing a little bit about Sunday services, about, is this good enough for our children and young people and our families? And how can I make the service better? So I've been kind of stressing about that. And so when we get coming up to summer and thinking, right, we're not going to be doing Tuesday evening sermon, what could we do with it? Thinking also, well, it might be good to equip us as a church, equip our families. And as a young dad, I'm baffled about really how to disciple my daughter, because she's 3 and I trained as a youth worker. That's a whole different dynamic. So I'm guessing half the time. And so as a young dad, I would really like some input myself. But I've also seen the impact, particularly I must admit from Jill, of her bits that she's drip feeding, and just how that has impacted Hope, that it then weaves itself into other things and the questions she asks. So for me, these are some of the reasons why we're having tonight, and we've got much more to kind of share on why this is really important for us as a church. And so I'm going to give Kate the first chance just to kind of speak on that for a little bit. Kate?
Excellent. Well, I am just so pleased to be able to speak tonight, because Parenting for Faith really, for me, has just kind of summarised what I have always been about. I've been a Sunday school teacher for the past 20 years, and I've always just seen the church as just a great big body of Christ. I love the fact that when we come to church, we are all ages. I don't know about your church, but I know we were like from tiny baby to 103. And I just love the fact that we could draw close to God at church, because that's what we come to church for, is to draw close to God and to radically love one another and spur each other on and encourage one another and to play our part and just to meet with God together. And I know as a child, I grew up in a very tiny village church, and there was probably about 25 there most Sundays. And I think probably the average age was about 60. But in my mind, 60 was really old. Now, I know now as a 50-year-old that 60 is not old, but what these old ladies taught me as a child was just priceless. Probably didn't realize that at the time, but the stories they would read me, their love and their interest in me as a child growing up right through teenage years. There was me and probably another 2 children in the church, and we just got loved outrageously. They were always there. They knew what was going on. They knew the latest boyfriend, the latest thing that was going on in our life and what we're into. And I just felt the body of Christ growing up. I just knew it. I experienced it. And I wanted the same for my own children. And we've been really fortunate as we've travelled around, living up in Scotland, and then since we've been down here, to be part of a church where everybody, or most people, were just keen to get involved and to welcome us as a family. Now, I know the statistics of children growing up within church, it's actually a 50% by the age of 19. 50% of children growing up in a Christian home will have either just put down their faith or lost their faith. And so how important it is that we actually, as parents and as a whole church, nurture our children and disciple our children. I know you've got a great children's team. I've had the pleasure of meeting them over the last couple of weeks, and or some of them. And from what the statistics are telling us, that actually the fact is that as a child, when they get to 10, you have the team for an hour on a Sunday morning or an hour and a half on a Sunday morning. You would have to spend 421 years with your child, and you're spending all this time with your child at home, waking hours. And I know we've all spent an awful lot of time with our children at home over the last few months, and we know that that's actually been really, really difficult. But I want you to have a think about what we have actually attempted, some of the things that we've adapted our lives in the last few months, particularly during lockdown. Some of us become hairdressers, some of us become teachers, some of us even become gardeners, which some, for my fingers have never been that particularly green, but I've had a bit more time on my hand and we've actually got involved. So maybe when we think of parenting for faith and we think of families discipling their own children as well as the help of the church as a whole, maybe we start to panic a bit. I know that's what I was like, and perhaps feel a bit guilty that we've not opened our Bibles every day around the kitchen table. But actually, we are able to make small and practical changes, to actually be really intentional of how we are going to allow our children that we know and we love, whether they be our own or those in the church, to actually see how God is involved in our own lives, and actually slowly but surely we can find really natural ways of talking and allowing windows into our own lives that actually they can see.
Awesome. Well, let's just come back to the gallery mode here and get everybody else up. What do folks make of that? Like, what's your experience of church and its impact on children in the family? What's your experience? Why? Because we've talked a little bit about this. Why is this important that we get involved as a whole church from the team? Someone unmute themselves and start talking. Go for it, Heather.
I just thought that was really interesting, Kate. It particularly reminded me of my time growing up in the church. That actually, what was really significant to me were the people around me. I had a really big, vibrant youth group at the time, and they had a big influence on me coming to faith, and also our youth leaders and how significant they were. And for me, it was mostly the church that brought me to faith. Not that my parents weren't Christians, but I think that was where I had my most of my experience of God. But actually, I think for my children, it's not necessarily happened. My oldest, as naturally, not naturally, but it hasn't maybe happened yet. So he's so different from me, and I think it is that, almost we're in lockdown, starting to think, oh gosh, I am a bit more responsible for this than I thought I was. I think I just expected he'll go to the church with me and then it'll just all happen in the same way that it happened to me, but actually that hasn't happened. So I think I'd need to be much more intentional about what I do, so that's been really interesting.
So true. I think probably a good number of us probably have maybe experienced that growing up ourselves, or have got other experiences. Anybody else want to kind of chip in on this front? Brent?
I'm just taken by this notion that it's more than just the parents that are involved in it. And like a couple of things I'd share is when Jonty went down to London to university, age 17, as a young student in his first year, a couple from the church who will remain nameless actually were down in London, visited him, went to church with him and took him out for a lunch. And they will never know just what a lovely thing that was for him and how it still connected him in such a remarkable way. And another story, totally different person has picked up on one of the boys' dissertations. In fact, again, another couple, and have worked their way through the dissertation with one of the boys, which is a remarkable thing to do. And just as they've gone from seeing them as children into young adults, to just naturally be part of that parenting as a village, as it were.
So powerful. Rachel, I think I saw your hand up as well.
Yes, I was just going to say, I guess I didn't grow up with a church community, although I did go to church about once a month with my mum. And I miss my church community. I miss it in parenting my kids. It's really hard with Doug. And one of the things that has been wonderful for us is just when someone from the church comes and knocks on the door and they don't just chat to us, but they chat to the kids. You're out walking and you bump into someone from church and they don't just ask how we are, but they ask the children how they are. And I don't think people realise how much of a difference it makes. My kids know so many adults.
Mm-hmm.
Most kids don't know that.
Yeah.
A school teacher and their parents and their aunts and uncles. But my kids have got, Peter would class them as best friends, who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s and older. And I just think it's just, having not grown up with that, I think it's incredible. And I'm really grateful for my church family.
And I guess that makes me think of just the transition as well. Like if you've got that relationship and it grows over childhood, over a young person, then when you hit that drop-off point of 18 and suddenly like you're out of X, Y, or Z and into other things, if you've already got that relationship, then hopefully there's a bit more of a natural kind of transition. But I didn't have that even growing up in church when I was young. I knew a couple of people, but not that many really. So that it was a more difficult kind of transition. Keith, I wonder if you had anything to kind of share on from a kind of up and coming perspective.
So I think as a Sunday school leader, we have, as Kate so eloquently said, we have 45 minutes with young people a week, and there's a real limit to how much you can input there. But the support of the wider church, the fact that our children bump into people in the street and they know them and they ask after them, and obviously the parents as well, who have 24/7 time with their children and can really input. And as Sunday school leaders, we see the difference that makes. I want to pick up on one other thing as well about the church body, is that my parents, when we went away, if we were away over a Sunday, we'd always go to the local church. And something that taught me was that we're part of a global church family. And when I came to this country from overseas, I was quite comfortable going to a church, finding a church, getting to become part of that church family and receive the support from that community, and just that understanding that we're not just talking about the local church, we're talking about the whole body of Christ around the world. Was so powerful for me.
Cool. And I guess in all of this, it comes back to that thing that we've shared in a number of contexts now. I know I've certainly mentioned it in a sermon or two, of just how the research suggests that every child needs to have 5 adults outside of their home who are invested in them in some way. Now that might be as little as they get to know them and are encouraging them, and they got that relationship, to being a Sunday school leader or being the minister or even praying for them at home. And we are in a really blessed position of having how many do we have across Sunday school? It's probably in the region of about, someone tell me the actual number.
60 or so.
Say
60
again.
or so Sunday schools.
60 or so, and then there's also our Boys and Girls Brigades, and so once we add all that up, you really do get to the point of saying there's no way that this can just be parents, there's no way it can just be the Sunday school or the officers and the companies. It has to involve the wider church as well. And so I think that's really why we want to emphasize this and give some time to this and really nurture that seed that's been sown a little bit in recent years. Kate, do you want to come back on any of these points or bits that have been shared?
No, I think we've kind of covered most things. The thing I would talk about leading into parents of faith would be about how the Bible talks in Deuteronomy 6 about how, we're actually perfectly positioned as church members and families to just use all those really sort of boring moments, really, to talk about God. So when you're in Sainsbury's queue waiting to pay, or whether you're waiting for your other child to come out of her gymnastics class or wherever it might be, actually these are the times that we can just talk about things of God. It can be really simple things, like when you're out for a walk and I came across a massive oak tree the other day, and they just, there's something in me, I just think, wow, and just to wonder with your child, going, why did God make different kinds of trees? Why was there not just one tree? And then you start thinking about creativity. You can just get lost. But it is just that thinking about being quite intentional about using these times. We don't have to create huge amounts of new time. We've got that time. It's just about how we use it, really.
So I know that one of the things that we're going to talk over in this session and the next session are some of the key tools that Parenting for Faith talk about and equip the church with, that help us to be more intentional. Could you give us just any quick summary that you might want to give about these tools, and before we go into the first one?
Well, there really are simple things that we can use, because I don't know about you, if somebody suggests something to me about parenting, I just kind of panic and think, I can't do this, or where do I start? And it's really like a starting point, things that we can think about. Actually, how do we change? How do we adapt? How do we become hairdressers, gardeners, and teachers that we've all become? How do we become parents and friends and body of church? Actually do intentionally look out for ways that we can disciple our children in our care.
That really sounds amazing. So I'm looking forward to getting into tool number 1. So let's get onto that just now.
One of the ways we learn is by watching others do something and then having a go ourselves. Creating windows is about giving our children opportunities to see how we connect to God throughout the day. This just means doing what you normally do with God when your kids are around and letting them see or hear what's going on. That might be something that you routinely do, like reading your Bible, or it might be letting them see how you deal with the stuff that's going on around you. You can create windows into both the highs and the lows. Say you've had a really rough day, you're tired, one of your kids is ill, and you've still got dinner to cook, but you grab a moment to call a friend you know will pray with you. By allowing your child to see and hear you ask for prayer and be in the room while your friend prays on the phone with you, your child will see how connecting with God has made a difference to you. Day by day, as you create windows into your relationship with God, they will see what an ordinary, everyday relationship with God can look like. Whether you've been a Christian for years or you're just exploring for yourself, showing how you connect to God right now, just as you are, can be a powerful thing for your children to see.
Great video, and it really gives us a bit of an insight into this really helpful tool. But I wonder, Kate, do you have something, some extra things that you might want to share with us just now?
Right, well, creating windows is all about showing our kids our imperfect, real and honest relationship with God. We often learn things, don't we, by watching someone else doing them and then trying it out ourselves. And kids are the same, and that's what we could be doing with our children at home. I can always remember when we were newly married, we were just setting up our own home in England at the time, and we went to have Christmas with my in-laws in Glasgow, just on the outskirts of Glasgow. And I loved going out when it was dark, particularly at Christmas, and being able to see through these windows of these beautiful houses and just having a look in and seeing how everyone was celebrating Christmas. And I just loved being able to get that glimpse into people's lives. I was just thinking, when do we ever spend a moment to think about 10 years on from now, where would we love our child to be spiritually, or the children that we're involved with at church? Spiritually, where is our child now? By creating windows into our lives, we could show our children how we have that real one-to-one connection with God. How can we do that? We can do it in really practical ways. We can be reading the Bible, and we could just perhaps, rather than scurry away to another room and be really quiet and saying we're having our quiet time, maybe we could just leave the door open a little bit, or even just leave our Bible on the kitchen table after we've finished reading our Bible. Maybe we could talk about, as families, when we're having dinner, about how we've got a big decision to make. I know we moved house about 10 years ago, and it was a really massive decision moving from Scotland down to England. Maybe we could pray together as a family about these decisions. Maybe it could be smaller decisions, how we're going to fix the car, or whether we need to get a new car. Maybe we just need to leave Premier Praise on and have some worship music going on in the house. Things that maybe we do when the kids are away at school, actually allow them to hear how we worship God whilst doing the washing up and all the really normal, boring things that we have to do day to day. We could be caring for others, showing them that actually practical things really do matter, or how we spend our money and how we give. So maybe to begin with, these things feel a little bit awkward, but little by little, they'll actually become more normal. We start small and then we aim big. Maybe we just need to be intentional, real and honest on the good days and the bad days. Because we know that God created us as families and as parents. He knew that we were going to parent these children, and actually we know we are best positioned. We know our children the best, and they know us the best. And actually it can be a two-way thing. We can actually grow with God, and we can allow our children a view of that, and hopefully they will also develop their own one-to-one connection with God. God connected rather than God smart.
I really like the sound of that, and I really hope to see that really flourish with my daughter Hope, but also in our whole church family here at Brighton's. So what does that make people think? What kind of stories do you see that already, or have experienced that already? This idea of creating windows so that they can see your faith and the faith of others, both in the family and in the church family. Who wants to kick us off? Rachel.
I guess it made me think about the godparents of the boys and how good they are at writing to them, and how easy it is in our culture actually to write about God and to write letters of encouragement. But then I thought, well, it's so much harder, at least for me, to talk about God and to talk about Jesus. I find it much easier to talk about church and who was at the meetings and what everyone was doing, rather than to talk about God. And I think a lot of that is a cultural thing. Have you got any tips as to how we can get used to just talking about God and Jesus as if they're amongst us real people, because they are, rather than them being kind of words that are a bit uncomfortable to use?
Yeah, I think I would start small. I wouldn't beat yourself up and feel guilty, which I know as parents we do about so many things. But actually prayer is a really good way into talking about God and talking about Jesus. And I always find prayer is just a great vehicle for so many things. It can be a great evangelistic tool. But also after you pray, you know, whether you pray in the morning before they go to school or pray at night before they go to bed, maybe just have a little chat after you've prayed. Might be just a really natural time to say, or even before would be better, just saying, actually, God and Jesus have been with you all day today, at school or wherever they've been. And actually, you know, has there been any bits that have been tricky today? And maybe Jesus, you know, you didn't feel that Jesus was there. Maybe we need to pray about something. Actually, just talking slowly and just about, you know, just start really small. There's some great tools, questions that you can ask. You could, if you find writing easier, then it might just be something you could write a little note to them every night and leave under the pillow, you know, so they can, and it could be something spiritual, it could be just something normal, but it just could be a way of communicating to your child, because again, you know your child better than anybody. So start small.
Thanks, Kate. Anyone else want to chip in on this front? Judith, what about yourself? We were talking earlier and bits and pieces. I know that you had a question in mind. What was that again?
Yeah. So my question was, I can absolutely see how this benefits our kids, whether it's our own children or whether it's our Sunday school family or whether it's nieces and nephews. I've certainly had experience where with our nephews, we're sitting down to dinner and Ewan and I always say grace. And our nephews don't go to church. And so we were like, well, why would we do anything different if we're having dinner with our nephews and with ourselves? And it's that, oh my goodness, am I going to do it? So you and I would look at each other and we're like, right, so we're going to say grace. And it's almost getting over that step and kind of saying why. And then I can absolutely see starting small really helped us to, something really small would kind of help us to kind of have further conversations. So can I understand how it helps with kids, but also kind of thinking, how does this help adults? Because I could see that would really help me having to be intentional. So Kate, I was just wondering if you've got any stories where you've seen how this really helps adults build their relationship.
Absolutely. I know with one of my best friends who's still in Scotland, and I've just started again, rather than just saying I'd speak to her on a Sunday night, you know, I went to church, just saying some little bits I knew would spark an interest, something that would capture her attention, whether it be a hymn that I knew she loved, even though she didn't go to church herself, or whether it just be a testimony of something that had happened to somebody. So just small snippets. I know I spoke to a colleague and she was saying how she discovered the tools of parenting faith when she was a student, and how she would come back to the student house where there were lots of non-Christians, and again she would rather than just say, I've just been to a meeting, she would say, I've just been to a prayer meeting. And actually, we've been praying about all the various different things going on in the world that immediately would spark other conversations, because not everybody believes in prayer. But actually, again, I think prayer is a great vehicle to spark many conversations. But yeah, it's all about starting small, and then as you get braver, and particularly if the children are young, that will just be the norm for them. I always remember my daughter, we used to come to the clan gathering in Scotland, and I always remember there was a big conference going on in a big church in Glasgow, and we were debating whether to go, and they were talking about a soaking time. So we were just having a joke saying, well, everybody heads to the bath. She knew exactly what soaking was from clan, and she was only sort of 3.5, 4, and I thought, wow, from the young, that age upwards, and if you have it when you're young, yeah, and she's now 19. It's amazing. Yeah, it's all good.
And I guess it sounds like this does put a bit of an onus on us to be having a bit of a deliberately active relationship with God and Jesus ourselves, Kate, by the sounds of things.
Absolutely, that's the key to it, being alive, every day, and actually discipling yourself as well, reading the word and praying and being active in your faith. So yeah, definitely does help. But then you do get bad days. That's okay.
Very true. And it was lovely to hear in the video that it doesn't have to be all the good stuff or all the highs with God, that you can also be sharing the tough times. And I'm sure there'll be times when kids really put us on the spot with some difficult questions. George, you were telling me about a story one time about when you were put on the spot by someone in your family, I think.
Was that about the baptism there, Keith?
Might be, yeah.
Sorry. Yes. No, I was just saying that my daughter. Yeah, she told me at age 4. She said friend's baptism the next day, and she said, "Dad, we really need to pray for these guys." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. We haven't done so. Yeah, let's do it." And I think there is an element of that. So once you open up the dialogue, then it can go two ways, and it gives them the opportunity to input as well. And sometimes we can be surprised by God speaking through the children to us.
May happen more and more.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great summary introduction for tool number 1. So let's go on to tool number 2, which is framing. And once more, we're going to watch a short video from Parenting for Faith to introduce this video.
We help our kids understand the world by putting a frame around things we want them to notice and understand. We can frame things by drawing our child's attention to what's going on around them, whether we're at home, church, or out and about. They might have questions, or you might want to take the lead and point things out to them. What you frame and how you do it will depend on their age, personality, and interests, as well as where you are. Just as we might explain to a toddler why we're going to the shops today, we can explain to them all sorts of things about God and what He's doing around us. You could frame how God loves and cares for all the different people you see, and share He promises to be close to people who are lonely. You could point out how amazing cars are, and that there haven't always been here, but God gave somebody the idea and the skills, and now we have cars. You could notice the trees and wonder together whether God made all the trees big like that to start with, or whether they all began very small. From toddlers to teens, no matter how old your child is, they need you to frame life with God for them. In the midst of our normal conversation and asking and answering questions, we can help our children know what is going on and how it fits into the bigger part of life with God.
That was another really helpful video there, just to give us a bit of context for what framing is, the second tool. But once more, Kate, anything that you would want to share for us?
Well, framing is just seeing God in the big and the small things of life. Explaining life, that's our job, isn't it, as parents and grown-ups. Lots and lots and lots of questions. I will never forget the questions, particularly when we used to go swimming. That used to be the time that my children used to always have lots and lots and lots, not always appropriate questions as well, but lots and lots of questions when we were swimming. I think about frame, it's like going to an art gallery, a modern art gallery, and looking at all these amazing pieces of art. And I have a artist brother, but I'm still not that up on art. And I look at these pictures, and it's not till I see the little notice at the side that explains exactly what's going on and maybe how much that piece is worth that I finally actually understand the painting. This is just what it's like for kids and children in church. We just presume that children know everything about what we've been doing the last 50 years. We maybe perhaps should think about ways that we could frame our Sunday morning service. Maybe it could be whispering to our child during the singing and just point out to them how we all worship in every different way possible. Those sing very loud, those that sing very quietly, those that sing not at all, those that sit down, those that shut their eyes, and actually explain to them that actually the people that are quiet are still worshipping God, but they might be just praying in their heads quietly, and actually that's okay if they want to do that as well. We might just need to put words where we need to explain different dynamics that are going on around us. We might need to look at the Bible and look at the different characters in the Bible. David and Goliath is a great illustration of this. So we don't hear much about God in the David and Goliath story. If we go back a few chapters, then we see actually David was found singing and praising his God. And this relationship between God and David was very special. And actually God had a plan for David's life to do something quite amazing. We mustn't really panic if we haven't got the answers to all these questions. Encourage our children to ask questions. But if you're anything like me, you think, I don't know the answer to all these questions, we can think about what we do know about the question and what we don't know. And we can always ask others. We've always got Scott to go to. You always can ask the leaders around you, what is the answer to this question? I know that this can all be slightly intimidating and thinking, I can't do this, but you can, because God has picked you again to be the parent of this child, and He is with you.
Amen. Well, once again, team, what's some of your reactions, questions? How have you seen this kind of come into play? So, Heather, see your hand up. What do you want to say?
I just think I love that. I'm quite encouraged by the fact that we just have to start small, but I'm actually wishing I had known all of this when my children were a lot younger. I really feel that I had a moment when I watched some of the videos of, oh, is it too late? Is it too late? And it's nice to know that you can start small. And I think I could absolutely see how easy it would be with a small child to frame everything that's happening, because they're always asking questions. But when they become teenagers and then you don't speak to them very much, it does feel sometimes quite contrived to do that. So I wonder, did you have any ways of framing more with older children, young people, any kind of suggestions on how to do that so that it wasn't quite so kind of, oh, here she goes, or what's mum doing now? It's a bit strange.
Yeah, I hear you. I was exactly the same. You know, I didn't come across Parenting for Faith until my youngest was 14, 15. So I have had the rolling of eyes and the, oh, here goes mum again. But it's all about your intention. And I think that there's always things that are going on in your children's lives that actually, you know, they do want prayer for. Again, I come back to prayer because I always think if you say to your child, I know when mine were all going through exams, I would always make a point of saying to them as they got out of the car, you know, I'm praying for you this morning. And, you know, I made sure that they knew that rather than, you know, good luck, I hope it goes well, actually making sure that God's name was in the was more than I was wishing them well, but actually I was sending them with God. And again, that works with younger children as well. If they're worried about something, even thinking about going back to school in August, you guys, you know, the actual fact you can say to them, you can pray with them beforehand, but say to them when you leave them, you're not going alone, you are going, you know, with God, and God is with you by His Holy Spirit every day. There are lots of tools on the website. So Parenting for Faith have got a website which is parentingforfaith.org, and on the first page you come to, we developed some tools, some questions ask. So one of the things for creating windows actually was, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of very good at scrolling down my phone at Facebook and coming across some lovely Bible verses, and I go, that's nice, or one really kind of gets the better of you, and it just says about maybe you could share that with your teenager, going, I've just read this really good verse that says that God is always with me, he will never forsake me and leave me. And it's little moments like that, whereas you may have just sort of passed on and appreciated that moment yourself, you can actually share these things with your child. But there's lots of other ideas on the website just to get you going, really. Things like share with your child what you liked about your church online meeting. What bits do you really like? I love going in my pajamas with a cup of tea or several cups of tea. Actually share that with them. Really practical things, but they're still spiritual things. Tell your child the first time that you knew God was real. Maybe use an example in the past where God's been really faithful to you as a family and they were blissfully unaware because they were only 3, 4. And just tell the story when you're having dinner one night, or just go, it's amazing, that God actually provided a house in the right place, so you were in the right school. That's happened to us several times, and you just think God is just so faithful. He loves us so much as a family. And you can talk about the difficult times as well, and actually be really honest. I do miss my mum that died last year, but I know that Granny is in heaven, and I know that one day I will meet her again. And yes, I do feel sad still, but I know, she's in a far better place than what she was when she was poorly here on this earth. So it can be really, and actually the kids, they go with it. They might to begin with think, what's going on here? But it might be that you're new, I don't know, that you have people in your fellowship are new to faith, actually framing that and saying, up to the age of 37 and a half, I kind of lived life my own way. But at that point, I went on an Alpha course, and actually God really intervened in my life and turned things around. And now, I'm trying, it's difficult, but I'm trying to walk with God. So it can be simple, small, or it could actually be quite big things. Does that help, Heather?
Yeah, thank you.
Carolyn, I see your hand up there.
Yeah, just thanks, Kate. Just when you were talking there about framing, and it reminded me of a story of a couple of years ago. So my daughter Megan would have been 12 at the time, and for a good wee while, Keith and I had been praying about moving house. Well, sorry, we hadn't been praying about moving house. We'd actually been planning to replace the bathrooms in our old house, and we'd set aside this day 6 weeks hence to that was the day we were going to go to the kitchen and bathroom shop and choose some new bathrooms. That was the plan. And at some point during those intervening weeks, and probably about 10 days before actually this day we'd set aside, I was driving past this house. Now, actually, this house had been up for sale for some months. I'd never noticed it, despite having driven past it, I don't know how many times. And I just had this sense this day of God saying, that's your house. And I'm like, sorry, what? I mean, we're buying bathrooms, God. We're not moving house. And God was like, no, that's your house. And really strangely, I mean, I didn't even tell Keith this because it just felt so completely off the wall. But about 2 days later, I was driving with Megan in the car with me, and Megan said something like, Mum, that's a really nice house. Could you imagine if we lived there? Or something. And I was just absolutely blown away because it just felt like such confirmation that this was something that God had for us. Even though we hadn't been really looking for it, it was something that God had for us. So I came back and I shared it with Keith, and on the day that we should have been going bathroom shopping, we came and viewed this house, and a week later we put in an offer. And we moved house, but the big thing was we told the kids about it, and I said, so Megan was really aware of the fact that she had been part of God's, speaking to us, and part of this process, and it's something we still talk about as a family, even now.
Great.
That's really cool. Any other thoughts or queries from folks on framing? You're all quite happy. Grand. Well, we're just probably need to actually round up in a moment anyway. Rounded up, we've covered 2 of our 5 tools tonight, creating windows and framing. We'll put links in the description for more information on the Parenting for Faith website. There's also the link that Kate was referring to about how do you engage with older children, young people. We'll put a direct link to there. And we're going to be back together on the first Tuesday of August, which is the 4th of August. So hopefully you can join us then. Kate will be back sharing on the other 3 tools from Parenting for Faith to equip us all as a church family for discipling our children and young people. Kate, any final things you would like to add?
No, I will be praying for you all, and thank you for having me. And I just pray that, God will bless you as a fellowship, as you just look further into how you can disciple your children, young people, and each other.
Thank you so much. And we will put up, I don't know if you can see it there, there's tools to use at home. We'll put up the sheet. It talks about all the tools, but what's really helpful on the back is it gives 5 ideas for applying each of the tools. So we will put that up so that over this first month, you might start trying out creating windows and framing at home, or maybe with our children, young people in different contexts, whether it's at Sunday school or as you see them out and about. So thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you to our team. Thank you most especially to Kate for giving us the time, and may God's blessing be with you all this night and forevermore. Amen.